The ceiling above Lily Anderson was just a blur of white and buzzing fluorescent light as another contraction slammed through her. Sweat slid into her eyes, stingy and hot, and the sound of the fetal monitor beside the bed changed from steady to uneasy. She tried to inhale like the nurse had taught her, in for 4, out for 6, but her chest felt packed with sand. "Mark," she rasped, her voice thin. "I can't breathe right. Please get somebody." Her husband didn't move toward the door. He stood at the foot of the bed, in his suit, tie loosened, the glow of his iPhone lighting his face colder than the snow outside Manhattan. "Your dad's on his way," Mark said without looking up. "Traffic's insane. Try not to make a scene before he gets here, okay?" The words hit almost as hard as the pain. He had said the same thing when she cried over his late nights, when she begged him to stop texting someone named Brianna after midnight, when she came home early and smelled perfume that wasn't hers on his shirt. Now he was saying it while their twin daughters fought for life inside her. The nurse had stepped out just a minute to grab more gloves. The room felt suddenly too still, the hum of machines louder, the air thick. Lily clutched the rails of the bed as another contraction clawed through her, sharper, wrong, like something tearing. Her vision shimmered at the edges. "Mark, please," she gasped. "Something's not right. Get the nurse, now." He finally slipped the phone into his pocket, but instead of heading for the door, he walked around to her side. Up close, she could smell his expensive cologne, the one he wore to client dinners and late meetings she was never invited to anymore. His eyes, normally a smooth salesman's blue, were flat and hard. "You know what's wrong?" he said quietly. "What's wrong is you, Lily." Her heart gave a sick lurch that had nothing to do with labor. In the hallway outside, Robert Anderson hurried toward the labor and delivery doors, breath puffing in white clouds as he stepped in from the loading bay after parking his old Toyota himself because he didn't trust valets. He balanced a cardboard tray with a lukewarm Starbucks coffee for himself and a hot chocolate Lily had begged for in a text hours earlier when the contractions first started. He had missed her last call, letting it ring while he dug for change at the parking meter, and guilt gnawed at him with every hurried step. "Please be okay," he thought, pushing through the double doors as a nurse rushed past him, eyes down. Inside the room, Lily's world narrowed to the pillow behind her head, the sour smell of disinfectant, and the way Mark's hand suddenly reached past her shoulders. For one foolish second, her heart leapt with hope that he was finally going to help, to lift her upright, to press the call button, to be the husband she kept defending to everyone, even to herself. His fingers closed around the stiff white hospital pillow. "Mark," she whispered, confusion threading through the fear as he lifted it. Then, with a quick, practiced motion that did not look like an accident, he slammed the pillow down over her face and leaned his weight on it. Just as Robert reached the doorway, coffee tray shaking in his hands, and saw his own son-in-law calmly smothering his gasping, laboring daughter. The moment Robert's scream ripped through the doorway, Lily's mind splintered into past and present. The present was a blur of Mark's shadow towering over her, the pillow crushing down, the taste of fear metallic on her tongue. But the past, the long, aching past, flooded her faster than her lungs could pull air. Because this wasn't the first time she'd felt powerless under the weight of someone she trusted. Years before Manhattan, before the Upper East Side apartment that looked perfect from the outside but felt like a cage inside, Lily Anderson had grown up in a small Ohio town where her mother's laugh used to fill every corner of their little house. Her mother, Grace, had been gentle but sharp-minded, a woman who believed in books, warm blankets, and second chances. She taught Lily how to braid her hair, how to make cinnamon pancakes, how to read people's intentions before believing their words. But none of that prepared Lily for the night her mother didn't come home. A drunk driver, a rain-slick road, a closed-casket funeral. Lily was 16, old enough to understand the permanence, young enough for it to crush her. Robert, normally quiet, soft-spoken, and practical, collapsed into a silence so deep it felt like another death. He worked double shifts to cover the bills, leaving Lily alone more than either of them wanted. She learned to cook, to keep the house, to manage the grief that sat on her chest like a sleeping animal. For years afterward, she carried the fear that every good thing in her life would be taken. So when Mark Sullivan walked into her world at 24, charming, confident, ambitious, she mistook attention for devotion. He worked in real estate, drove a polished black Mercedes, and talked about futures as if he already owned them. To a woman who had spent her life surviving, his certainty felt like safety. He brought her flowers to the clinic where she worked, waited outside during her night shifts so she wouldn't walk to the subway alone, bought her an iPhone so she'd never be out of reach. She didn't notice the way those gestures slowly positioned him as the center of her every decision. When he proposed 6 months later, with a modest diamond ring and promises of building a life together, Lily said yes before doubt could whisper otherwise. At first, life with Mark felt like breathing fresh air after years underwater. He leased a stylish apartment on the Upper East Side with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. He cooked for her on Fridays, poured her wine, held her waist when music floated through the living room. Their first anniversary was a weekend trip to the Hamptons, her first time seeing the ocean at sunrise. But controlling men don't appear as monsters overnight. They arrive softly. He started choosing her outfits. This one's more flattering, babe. Then her friends. They don't really support you like I do. Then her spending. We need structure if we're planning a future. The first time he raised his voice, he apologized with Tiffany earrings. The first time he punched a wall near her head, he arrived the next morning with roses and a handwritten letter about stress and pressure. The first time he shoved her hard enough for her shoulder to bruise, he cried in her lap. And Lily, who had lost too much in life, kept forgiving. When she found out she was pregnant with twins, she told herself this would change him. Make him softer. Make him present. Make him the husband she once believed he was. Instead, he drifted further away. Late nights became normal. His phone lived face down. The scent of an unfamiliar perfume lingered on his coat. When she asked, he accused her of paranoia, of insecurity, of acting like her mother, words sharp enough to cut bone. She never imagined those doubts, those bruises, those silences would lead her to a hospital bed, fighting for air beneath a pillow. And she definitely never imagined the moment her father would walk in and see the man she had defended for years, trying to kill her and their unborn children. Long before the hospital lights and the screams echoing through the maternity wing, Lily Anderson had believed she was living a dream, one built high above Manhattan, wrapped in glass and city lights. To anyone passing by on Park Avenue, the Sullivan apartment looked like a symbol of success. A modern luxury unit with a marble foyer, a designer sofa. Mark insisted they needed for image, and a view of the skyline that sparkled like a postcard. But beauty can hide rot, and Lily learned too late that a pretty cage is still a cage. In those early months of their marriage, she remembered how she used to stand near the oversized windows at dawn, staring out at the Chrysler building as the sunlight caught its steel crown. She'd sip the cheap coffee she preferred, while Mark drank imported blends from a machine that cost more than her first used car. She would imagine a future filled with warmth, children, simple joys, a home that felt loved in, lived in. But the apartment never became that. Mark wanted everything curated, controlled, staged, no mismatched blankets, no thrifted decor, no homemade touches. People at my level notice things, he'd say, as if invisible elites roamed their living room at night. He replaced her soft cotton curtains with heavy charcoal drapes, swapped her bookshelves for glass ones that displayed only architecture magazines he never read, and insisted she store away anything too personal. When she laughed once and called it a museum, he didn't laugh back. "You're lucky," he said coldly. "Most people your background don't get to live like this." Her background. The word stung every time. Lily had come from a working-class home, humble, cluttered, warm. She had never cared for luxury, but she cared for him, so she tried to adapt. She tried when he scolded her for buying generic shampoo that made the bathroom look cheap. She tried when he took her iPad and installed monitoring apps so he could keep her safe. She even tried when he reduced her clinic, shifts from full-time to part-time, claiming he didn't want his wife running around stressed like a peasant. The shift meant fewer coworkers around her, less independence, less outside influence, more of him. The first time she realized the apartment didn't just confine her, it isolated her, was the night she miscarried their first pregnancy. It had been early, barely 6 weeks, barely real to anyone but her. She remembered sitting on the marble floor, shaking, calling Mark again and again. He didn't answer. When he finally came home, smelling of whiskey and a perfume she didn't own, he knelt and held her. For a moment, she thought maybe this time he would stay, soften, become the man she believed he could be. But then he said the words that carved themselves into her forever. "Don't make this dramatic, Lily. Women lose pregnancies all the time." And then, as if disposing of a problem, he stood up and walked into their bedroom. After that night, she could no longer pretend the view outside their windows meant anything. She stopped opening the drapes in the morning. She stopped playing music while she cooked. She stopped humming in the shower. The apartment, once a symbol of dreams, became a structure of silence, one that absorbed her voice until she felt like she barely existed inside it. When she became pregnant again, twins this time, she hoped the babies might be the light returning to her life. But even during her appointments, Mark's attention wandered to his phone, to messages she later learned came from Brianna. He never touched her belly unless someone was watching. He never attended a single checkup unless she begged. Every night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when her home had turned into a place she feared returning to, wondering how many cracks she had overlooked before the walls finally closed around her. And she had no idea the same Manhattan skyline she once adored would soon witness the destruction of everything Mark had built and the beginning of her rise from it. Brianna Cole entered Mark Sullivan's life the way a spark enters dry grass, quiet at first, then devastating. To the outside world, she was simply a polished, ambitious 25-year-old who worked in marketing for a boutique firm downtown. Pretty, poised, polished, nothing more. But behind her soft smile and expensive perfume was a woman who knew exactly how to slip into the cracks of a man's ego and make him believe she was the answer to every insecurity he'd ever tried to hide. Lily first heard Brianna's name months before the twins were conceived. Mark mentioned her casually, almost dismissively, while scrolling through emails at the dining table. "New consultant," he'd muttered. "Bright, driven, actually useful for once." Lily didn't think much of it then. Mark often dismissed his colleagues, but the word useful had lingered. She remembered looking up and asking, "What does she consult on?" His answer, everything, felt too broad, too rehearsed, but she let it go. She had no idea Brianna had already begun her silent invasion. Mark met Brianna at a Manhattan networking event, one Lily had been too nauseous to attend during the early weeks of pregnancy. Brianna wore a tight black dress and a smile designed to look innocent but wasn't. She knew men like Mark, men starving for validation, men who mistook admiration for desire, men who liked to believe a beautiful woman could see a greatness in them, their wives somehow overlooked. Brianna had researched Mark before approaching him. She knew his salary, his clients, the rumors about his temper, even the tension in his marriage. That wasn't an obstacle, it was an opportunity. "Your presentation was refreshing," she'd said that night, brushing his arm lightly. "Most men in your field don't have your confidence." Confidence. The word that hooked him. Mark bought her a drink, then another. And by the third, she was laughing at jokes Lily never found funny, leaning in closer, whispering compliments he felt entitled to hear. Within a week, Brianna became a fixture in his schedule. Late brunch, meetings, strategy dinners, weekend, project planning. Lily questioned it once, only once, and Mark's eyes cooled instantly. "Don't start," he snapped. "She respects my work. Something you used to do." That was how Brianna inserted herself, subtly wounding Lily through Mark, twisting small doubts into sharpened blades. But Brianna wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerous. Before her marketing job, she had briefly worked at a private psychiatric care facility. She'd been fired for administering the wrong dosage of medication to a patient who later coded, "The incident never made the news." The facility buried it to avoid lawsuits. But Brianna didn't forget the power she felt having someone's life in her hands. However briefly, control thrilled her, vulnerability excited her. And Mark, volatile, prideful Mark, was the perfect puppet. She fed him lies softly, sweetly, the way someone feeds poisoned fruit. "Your wife doesn't appreciate you. You deserve someone who pushes you to be great. She's holding you back. She'll use the babies to trap you." And Mark, desperate to feel powerful, swallowed every word. Soon he began echoing Brianna's venom. He criticized Lily's body as it changed during pregnancy. He mocked her fatigue. He sneered at her excitement when she bought baby clothes. The man who once promised partnership now acted as if fatherhood were a burden forced upon him. But Brianna wanted more than Mark's attention. She wanted control of his future, his finances, his life. She researched Lily, too, her background, her clinic salary, even the identity of her late mother. When she learned Lily had no visible wealth, it emboldened her. "She needs you more than you need her," Brianna whispered one night in Mark's car, her head on his shoulder. "Women like her break easily. You just have to push." Push? A word that would take on a horrifying meaning the day Lily went into labor. And as Brianna lay in her downtown apartment that morning, bathed in soft sunlight, texting Mark instructions wrapped in affection, she had no idea her carefully spun web was about to snap and choke both of them. The day Lily went into labor should have been a day filled with trembling joy, warm hands, and whispered encouragement. Instead, it began with cold air, cold words, and a cold silence that told her long before the contractions that something was terribly, terribly wrong. It was 6:12 a.m. when she woke to the first sharp cramp, not the dull waves she'd been feeling for weeks, but a deep, twisting pull that made her grab the edge of the mattress. She turned toward Mark's side of the bed, hoping for reassurance, or even a glance, but the sheets were cold. He hadn't come home. Again, her chest tightened. She reached instinctively for her phone. 6 missed calls to him. No response. The last message she'd sent hours earlier, "I think I'm close, come home," was still unread. She tried to stand, but another contraction buckled her knees. She steadied herself against the wall, breathing through her teeth. The babies weren't due for 2 more weeks, but twins rarely followed schedules. Her hands shook as she dialed her father. "Dad," she whispered when he answered. "I think it's happening. I'm on my way." His voice came instantly steady, warm, terrified. "Stay calm, honey. I'm getting dressed now." Relief washed over her for a moment, until the front door suddenly clicked open. Mark walked in with the casual stride of a man returning from a gym session, not a night spent God knows where. His hair was damp, his shirt was wrinkled, and a faint scent of floral perfume clung to him. Definitely not hers. "You're up early," he said, dropping his keys on the counter. "I'm in labor." The words trembled out of her. "We need to go." Instead of rushing to her, instead of panic or concern or even surprise, Mark simply rubbed his forehead as if she'd inconvenienced him. "Now?" he muttered. "Seriously?" A contraction ripped through her so violently she doubled over, clutching her belly. The fetal monitor strapped under her shirt beeped unevenly. She didn't know if it was her imagination or real, but fear clawed at her spine. "Mark, please," she gasped. "We need to get to the hospital." He sighed, annoyed. "Let me call someone to cancel a meeting." But he didn't call anyone. He didn't grab the hospital bag she'd prepared. He didn't put a hand on her back or offer support. Instead, he pulled out his phone and stared at it with flicking eyes, checking, responding, deleting. The screen lit his face, and for just a second, she saw the name on the banner. Brianna. 3 new messages. Her stomach twisted harder than any contraction. "Who is that?" she whispered. "Don't start," Mark snapped. "Not today. Not today." Something went wrong while generating the response. "If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at help.openai.com. For a moment, everything in the delivery room froze the air. The lights, even the frantic beeping of the fetal monitor, as Robert's voice cracked through the doorway. Mark jerked back, the pillow slipping from his hands and landing on the floor with a dull thud. Lily sucked in a desperate breath, her chest hitching, lungs burning as if they were waking from drowning. But that single breath didn't save her. It only made her aware of how close she had come to slipping away. Pain like fire shot through her abdomen. The contraction wasn't a normal surge. It felt jagged, wrong, as if something inside her was collapsing. The nurse rushed back into the room, wide-eyed, hands trembling as she took in the scene, Lily gasping. Mark flushed with fury, Robert frozen in disbelief. "What did you do?" Robert's voice shook, not with anger, but devastation. Mark opened his mouth, reaching for the first excuse he could manufacture. She panicked. She couldn't breathe. "I was helping her sit up." "Helping?" The nurse cut him off, pressing a button on the wall. "She's in distress. A twin's heart rate just dropped. Step back now." Mark didn't move. Not an inch. He stared at Lily with something colder than hatred, fear. The kind of fear that came from knowing a moment of cruelty had gone too far. Another contraction tore through her. Lily arched off the bed, fingers clawing for the rail. "The baby, something's wrong," she gasped. The nurse checked the monitor again, her face paling. "We need an emergency team. Now." Her voice shook, Not because of the medical emergency, she'd seen those before, but because she had witnessed what no nurse should ever see in a delivery room. A husband who had just tried to silence his wife permanently. Robert stepped forward and grabbed Mark's arm. "Get away from my daughter." But Mark yanked back with a force that startled everyone. "Don't touch me. I didn't do anything. She's hysterical. She always exaggerates." A sound cut through the chaos, a flat, low alarm. The kind no parent, no grandparent, no human being ever forgets. The heart rate of one of the twins plummeted. Lily's eyes widened in terror. "Please save them, save them." Doctors rushed in. The room erupted in commands, gloves snapping, instruments clattering. The air turned metallic, sharp, urgent. Someone pushed Mark away. Someone else ushered Robert to the corner. Lily's legs were lifted, monitors reattached, oxygen placed over her face. Still, she couldn't breathe. Not fully. Not just from labor, but from heartbreak. From the horrifying knowledge that the man who vowed to protect her had chosen violence instead. A doctor's voice rang out. "We're losing twin A. Prep for emergency delivery." Twin A. The world stilled again. Not the sterile stillness from moments before. This one was worse, heavy, final. Lily felt her soul split open. No, no, please, please. She didn't know if she was begging God, the doctors, or whatever strength she had left inside her. Maybe all three. The contraction that followed wasn't pain, it was grief manifesting physically. Her body shook with sobs she didn't have breath for. Robert pressed a fist to his mouth, tears spilling. He had never felt so useless, so frightened, so shattered. Mark stepped back, pale now, trembling. Not from remorse, from consequence. A doctor touched Lily's arm. "We're taking you to surgery. We'll do everything we can." Lily blinked, vision swimming. She tried to focus on her father, anchoring herself in the last face she trusted. Her lips moved around the oxygen mask, forming the words she feared were true. "Dad, I think one of my babies is already gone." And as the doors slammed shut behind the surgical team, Mark whispered something under his breath that made Robert's blood run cold. The hallway outside the operating room was too bright, too quiet, too clean for the kind of devastation unfolding behind the double doors. Robert stood frozen, hands shaking as he tried to steady his breath. His daughter, his little girl who once braided his hair clumsily on Sunday mornings, was fighting for her life. One grandchild was slipping away, and the cause of all of it stood just 6 feet away, pacing with the agitation of a man inconvenienced, not guilty. Mark ran both hands through his hair, muttering to himself. Every few seconds he shot a glance at the surgery doors, not with worry but calculation. Sweat gathered at his temples, his jaw clenched. He was unraveling not because of what he had done to Lily, but because someone had witnessed it. Someone who would not stay silent. Robert's stomach churned. He wanted to punch the man. No, he wanted to destroy him, but he couldn't move. His knees felt like glass. A nurse passing by paused, touching Robert's arm lightly. "Sir, please take a seat. She's in good hands." Good hands. He wished those good hands could reach backward in time 10 minutes and undo what his damned son-in-law had done. As the nurse walked away, Mark finally stopped pacing. He turned toward Robert, eyes sharp, voice low. "Look," he said, "we need to get our story straight." Robert blinked at him. "Our story? You walked in at a bad angle." Mark's voice chilled to something rehearsed. "You didn't see what you think you saw." Robert stared at him, stunned to speechlessness. Mark continued, as if explaining something tedious. "Lily was panicking, thrashing. I grabbed the pillow to keep her from hurting herself. If she had ripped the IV out, she could have endangered the babies." "The babies?" Robert growled. "The babies whose heart went flat the second you put your hands on her?" Mark flinched, but only slightly. He stepped closer. Too close. His cologne, sharp, expensive, nauseating, filled the air. "If you tell the hospital what you think you saw, they will investigate. And investigations complicate everything, including Lily's care." "That is a threat," Robert whispered. "It's common sense," Mark replied. "Stress can push her into cardiac arrest." "You want to risk that?" Robert's hands curled into fists. "Back up," he warned. But Mark didn't. He leaned in, voice lowering into something even darker. "You think Lily can raise kids alone? She's fragile, emotional. That's why she needs me. And let's be honest," Mark smirked. You're not exactly in great shape yourself. You can't support her." The words hit Robert like a blow, not because they were true, but because they were spoken with such venomous ease. He stepped in, eyes blazing. "If she makes it out of that room alive, I will never let you near her again." Mark's laugh was soft, deranged, chilling. "You think you get to decide that?" He tilted his head. "You don't understand what's happening, do you? Lily has spiraled for months. Depression, paranoia, irrational fears. I've told her therapist everything." Robert froze. "Her therapist?" "Oh, yes," Mark said calmly. "You'll see it all in her records. How unstable she is, how she imagines things." He even used air quotes. "So if you tell anyone what you thought you saw, the only person they'll lock up is her." Lock up? As if Lily were the danger, not the man standing here like a demon wrapped in human skin. Before Robert could respond, a doctor pushed through the surgery doors. Both men spun toward her. Her expression was grim, shoulders tight beneath her scrubs. "Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan's family?" "Yes," Robert said instantly. Mark said it a beat too late. The doctor inhaled. "Twin A. We couldn't save her." Robert staggered back against the wall, tears flooding his eyes. He covered his face with both hands, muffling a broken sound. But Mark didn't react with grief. His reaction was a flash of something else: relief. A single burden gone. And as Robert looked up through trembling fingers, he caught it, saw it, knew it. That was the moment Robert realized his son-in-law wasn't just dangerous, he was capable of anything. When Lily finally drifted back to consciousness, it wasn't gentle. It came in pieces, sounds before shapes, pain before memory. The steady beep of machines, the cold bite of an IV in her arm, the faint, sterile smell of disinfectant. Her eyelids felt like they'd been weighted with stone, but she forced them open. The world came into focus slowly. White ceiling, gray walls, dim hospital light. A postpartum recovery room. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach, and the emptiness beneath her palm sent a bolt of terror through her. The babies. Her breath hitched, uneven, panicked. My babies where?" A hand wrapped around hers. Warm, shaking, familiar. "Lily, sweetheart. I'm here." Her father's voice cracked. Robert had pulled a chair to her bedside, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands only seconds before she woke. He looked older, years older than he had that morning. "Are they okay?" Lily whispered. "Please, please tell me." Robert swallowed hard. The sound of it was devastating. "Twin B is in the NICU," he said softly. "She's fighting. She's strong just like you." Lily exhaled shakily. Relief washed over her, brief, fleeting, fragile, because she saw something else in her father's expression, something broken. "What about Twin A?" she asked. "Dad, where is she?" Robert's face crumpled. In all her years, she had only seen her father cry twice, the night her mother died and the day he dropped her off at college. But this was different. These were tears pulled from the deepest part of him. He shook his head. "No," Lily whispered, her throat closed. "No, no, please, she was okay this morning, Dad. She was okay." Her father leaned forward, clutching her hands like he could hold her together as she shattered. "They tried, Lily. God knows they tried." A sound tore out of her, raw, guttural, unlike anything she had ever heard from herself. Her body curled instinctively, but pain knifed through her abdomen, forcing her back against the pillows. She gasped for air, grief choking her like a fist around her throat. "My baby," she sobbed. "My baby girl." Robert pressed his forehead against her hand, crying silently. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Minutes or hours, she couldn't tell, passed in a haze of tears and gasps and trembling. The room blurred. Machines beeped. Her world, once filled with two tiny heartbeats, had collapsed into one. And then the door opened. Robert stiffened instantly. Mark stepped into the room. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair messy in a way that was meant to look distressed, but his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were dry, completely dry. He approached the bed with a practiced look of sorrow that didn't reach a single inch of his face. "Lily," he whispered, reaching for her hand. She flinched. Robert moved between them like a shield. "Do not touch her." Mark blinked with offended innocence. "I'm her husband." "You lost that right today," Robert said, voice shaking not with weakness but fury. Lily's breath caught. Her vision flashed with pieces of memory. The pillow, the weight, the terror, the sound of her father's scream. Her hand flew to her mouth. She remembered. Mark took a step closer. "Baby, you were panicking. I was trying to help." Lily's pulse spiked. Monitors began to beep faster. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. "Get out," she rasped. "Get out, Mark, get out." "You're confused," he insisted, spreading his hands. "The doctors will tell you it's the hormones." Robert lunged forward. "If you take one more step toward her, I will drag you out of this hospital myself." Mark's mask slipped. Just for a second, a twitch of annoyance, a flash of contempt. He leaned in not toward Lily, but toward Robert and whispered, barely audible, "You think this is over? She needs me. And she'll come back to me. She always does." Robert's fists clenched. Mark straightened his jacket and left, not in sorrow but in irritation, as if Lily had inconvenienced him by surviving. The door clicked shut, and Lily realized, with a cold shiver crawling through her body, that surviving him once did not mean she was safe from him now. The hours after Mark left her hospital room were the longest of Lily's life. Grief pulsed through her in waves deep, dragging, suffocating. Losing Twin A felt like losing a piece of her own soul, a piece she would never, ever get back. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that empty space on the monitor, the stillness where a heartbeat should have been. But beneath the grief, something else stirred. Something sharper. Something that felt like the faintest spark of awakening. Her father sat beside her, refusing to leave. His hands were wrapped around a lukewarm cup of hospital coffee, untouched. He kept watching her with the careful attention of a man terrified she might disappear if he blinked. "Dad," Lily whispered, staring at the ceiling. "Did he really try to—" She couldn't finish. The words lodged in her throat like broken glass. Robert squeezed her hand gently. "I saw it, Lily. With my own eyes." The confirmation hollowed her out. She had remembered the pressure of the pillow, the panic, the fading lights, but hearing her father say it made it real in a way nothing else had. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Lily whispered the truth she had avoided for years. He was never going to change, was he? Robert's grief twisted into anger. He didn't want to change. He wanted control. His voice trembled. "People like Mark don't stop on their own. They escalate." Lily swallowed hard. She thought of all the times Mark had apologized. The roses, the letters, the nights he cried, saying he was under stress, that he needed patience, that she was his everything. She remembered believing him. Wanting to believe him. But she also remembered the bruises she hid under sleeves. The insults whispered into her hair at night. The loneliness of walking on eggshells in her own home. The pillow over her face wasn't sudden, it was the ending she had been inching toward for years. A soft knock broke the silence. A young nurse stepped inside with a tentative smile. "Miss Sullivan? We wanted you to know your little girl in the NICU is stable for now. She's small but strong. Small but strong, just like her mother would have to become." "Can I see her?" Lily asked, voice cracking with longing. The nurse nodded. "We'll take you in a wheelchair, maybe in an hour, once your vitals settle." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I shouldn't say this, but I was outside the room earlier. I heard what your husband said, and if you need anything at all, you ask for me. My shift is long. I'm here." There was fear in the nurse's eyes. Fear of Mark. That alone told Lily everything she needed to know. After the nurse left, Robert leaned closer. "We'll keep him away from you. I'll talk to security. I'll talk to the police. He is not stepping foot near you again." But Lily shook her head slowly. "Police won't believe me. Not without evidence. Not with him twisting everything." Her voice trembled. "He's already setting up a story, Dad. He's been telling my therapist I'm unstable. He's been planning this." Robert's jaw tightened. "Then we'll get evidence. We'll find someone who listens. Someone who isn't blind to him." But Lily wasn't listening anymore. A quiet numbness settled over her. Survival wasn't just physical, it was a battle she would have to fight long after the bruises faded. She wasn't ready for it. She didn't even know where to start. Then another knock sounded. This one firmer. A doctor stepped in, not her OB. Someone older, steadier, wearing a badge marked hospital administrator. "Miss Anderson?" he said gently, using her maiden name, maybe by accident, maybe out of respect. I need to speak with you about something we found during the routine review of the delivery room systems. Robert straightened. What did you find? The administrator hesitated. His expression darkened. We discovered that 10 minutes of the delivery room security footage, he paused, measuring the gravity of his next words, was deleted. Lily's breath froze. Deleted? Someone had covered tracks. The administrator continued. Our IT team also found signs the deletion was intentional and done by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Lily felt cold spread through her chest, colder than grief, colder than fear. Who would do that? Robert whispered. The administrator looked at both of them. Voice low. We don't know yet, but someone in that room didn't want us to see what happened. And Lily realized in that moment, the real battle was only just beginning. The administrator's words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, choking, impossible to ignore. 10 minutes of footage, 10 crucial minutes missing. Lily stared at him, her pulse thudding painfully against the oxygen clip on her finger. Someone had erased the truth. Someone had erased her. Her father's voice broke through the ringing in her ears. Do you have any suspects? The administrator shook his head slowly. We're reviewing staff access logs, but whoever did it knew how to bypass the system. That's not something an average nurse or tech could pull off. And Mark? Robert asked, his tone dark. Did he have access? Not directly, the administrator said. But if someone gave him the right login? Lily closed her eyes. She saw Brianna's smirk. She saw the way Mark's phone kept lighting up during labor. She saw everything too clearly. Her lungs tightened, not from panic, but from clarity. This wasn't a man who snapped. This was a man who planned. When the administrator left, Robert moved closer. Honey, there's something I should have told you sooner. Lily opened her eyes. Her father looked nervous, truly nervous. Robert Anderson was not a man who frightened easily, but right now he looked as though he was about to rip open a secret he'd been guarding with both hands. What is it, Dad? He exhaled shakily and reached into his coat. From the inner pocket he pulled out a thin envelope, yellowed slightly at the edges. This came from your mother's lawyer years ago, he said. I was supposed to give it to you when you got married, but I didn't, because I didn't trust Mark. Something about him felt wrong even then. And your mother? God bless her, she wanted you protected. Lily blinked. Protected from what? Robert placed the envelope in her hands. Her name was written on the front in her mother's handwriting, soft loops, careful strokes. Her chest tightened. She traced the letters with trembling fingers. Open it, her father urged. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Thick, formal, legal. A clause. From her mother's estate? Lily read the words twice before her brain fully registered them. Upon the event of my daughter entering into a marriage with an individual who displays patterns of coercive control or domestic aggression, her inheritance shall be released to her solely upon her departure from said marriage. Her inheritance. What inheritance? She kept reading. The sum was impossibly large. Her mother had quietly accumulated a fortune from land sales and private investments. Money Lily never knew existed. Money her mother had kept hidden to protect her. Money designed for one purpose, to make sure Lily could leave a man like Mark without being trapped. Her breathing stuttered. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Tears filled Robert's eyes. Because you loved him. And I didn't want to poison your marriage without proof. I thought, maybe I was wrong about him. He shook his head, anguish tightening his jaw. I wasn't. Lily pressed the paper to her chest. A strange mix of grief and strength poured into her. Her mother, gone for more than a decade, had reached across time to shield her. But the most shocking part came at the bottom of the document. In the event of deliberate harm against Lily or her children, the full estate transfers immediately to her, bypassing all legal delays. Her heart thudded. Deliberate harm. Mark had done exactly that. Her mother's protection was already active. Mark can't touch this money, Robert whispered. He can't control you. He can't trap you financially. Not anymore. Lily stared at the clause again, her hands shaking. The truth crystallized like ice in her veins. Mark hadn't just tried to hurt her. He had activated the one safeguard he'd never known existed. She wasn't powerless. She wasn't trapped. She wasn't his anymore. As the weight of her mother's foresight settled into her bones, Lily whispered a promise to herself, to the baby fighting in the NICU, and to the daughter she lost. I'm getting out, I'm going to fight him, and I'm going to win. Robert rested a trembling hand on her shoulder. "I'll be with you every step." Because now Lily understood something clearly. Mark had taken almost everything, but in doing so, he had given her the weapon that would finally destroy him. Mark Sullivan returned to the hospital the next morning, like a man arriving to collect a package, not a widower-to-be, not a grieving father, not a husband whose wife nearly died. He walked through the maternity wing with the stiff arrogance of someone used to doors opening automatically for him. But this time, the doors didn't open. People watched him. Nurses whispered. Security took an extra step closer. Something in the air had shifted, and Mark smelled it. Fear. Not Lily's this time, his. He reached Lily's room and found the door closed. A nurse stood guard outside, her arms crossed. A new face. One who looked unimpressed by expensive suits or false charm. "I'm her husband," Mark announced. "And I'm not blind," the nurse replied flatly. "You can wait." Mark stiffened. "This is harassment. This is hospital policy when a patient reports feeling unsafe." His jaw clenched. Lily reported him, already. She was supposed to be weak, disoriented, grieving. He thought he still had time to manipulate the narrative. He leaned closer, letting his voice drop into the practiced smoothness he used to close real estate deals. "Look, emotions were high yesterday. She misunderstood. I love my wife. I love my kids. I'm just trying to see her." The nurse didn't even blink. "You're not going in." Mark's smile cracked at the edges. "Do you know who I am?" "No," she said, "and I don't care." He stepped back, seething. Hospitals were supposed to take the husband's side automatically. They always had before. Why were they all suddenly protective? What exactly had Lily said? What had Robert said? He tried again. "Fine. I'll speak with the admin." But before he could leave, the door opened from inside. And there stood Robert. A different Robert than the night before. Not shaking, not broken. This Robert had purpose in his posture and fire in his eyes. "You're not welcome here," Robert said quietly. Mark scoffed. "You don't get to decide that." "I do today." Robert stepped fully into the doorway, blocking the view behind him. "The staff has documented your behavior. Lily has spoken to her doctor, and security has been notified." "Security?" Mark barked out a humorless laugh. "You're out of your mind." Robert leaned in until their faces were inches apart. "If you take one more step toward my daughter, you'll see just how sane I am." For a moment, Mark thought about pushing him aside. He even lifted his hand. But then he saw something on Robert's face he had never seen before. A man with nothing left to lose. Mark lowered his hand. "You think you can keep me from her?" he hissed. "I'm still her husband. I still have rights." Robert's voice turned to ice. "Not after what you did." Mark froze. So, Lily had remembered. He tried to recover, straightening his jacket. "She's confused. She's traumatized. She needs me." "What she needs," Robert cut in, "is one day where you don't hurt her." Mark's lip curled. He wasn't used to being dismissed, not by clients, not by colleagues, and especially not by family. "You're both making a mistake. She'll regret turning on me. She always regrets it." Robert didn't respond. He simply closed the door in Mark's face. Hard. Mark stood there, shaking with rage. He had lost control, something he never allowed to happen. Lily had always folded under pressure, always apologized even when she wasn't wrong, always came back. But this time, he could feel it. Something was different. Before he could spiral deeper into panic, Brianna called. He answered sharply. "What?" Her voice oozed irritation. "I thought you said it was handled, that she wouldn't remember anything." "She shouldn't have," he snapped. Everything was sloppy," Brianna whispered. "Now fix it before this turns into a legal nightmare, because if I go down for helping you, I'll make sure you go down first." Mark's blood went cold. She knew about the footage. She knew he'd dragged her into this. And she wasn't loyal. He ended the call abruptly, pulse racing. He needed a plan. Fast. Lily couldn't leave him. Not now. Not when his finances were stretched thin, when his deals were collapsing, when Brianna had started making demands he couldn't meet. He needed Lily's money. He needed access to the twins. He needed control. But most of all, he needed her silent. And he turned toward the elevator with a new resolve, unaware that inside the room he'd been barred from, Lily was finally gathering the strength to destroy him. By the afternoon, Sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds of Lily's hospital room, striping her blanket in pale gold. She sat upright with slow, deliberate breaths, each inhale tugging painfully against her stitches. Grief weighed heavy in her chest, but beneath it stirred something sharper, a resolve she didn't yet know how to name. Robert had stepped out momentarily to speak with hospital security. She wasn't alone, though. 2 nurses lingered near the station, just outside her room, their presence subtle but unmistakably protective. Word had spread. Staff knew who Mark was now. They knew what he'd done, or at least enough to be wary. Lily stared at the document from her mother lying on her lap. Her hands trembled as she traced the signature again and again. Her mother had planned for this. Planned for him. Planned for a danger Lily never wanted to believe she was living with. A soft knock pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. A man stepped in, tall, composed, wearing a charcoal suit and a badge clipped to his belt. He didn't look like hospital staff. He didn't look like law enforcement either. His presence was calm, almost grounding. "Miss Anderson?" he asked gently. Lily nodded, wary. "Yes. I'm Ethan Ward," he said. "The hospital called me in regarding your medical costs." She blinked. "Why would the hospital call you?" Ethan hesitated, not awkwardly, but thoughtfully, as if deciding how much to reveal. "I'm a partner with Easton Healthcare Investments. Our firm funds several patient support programs here." He stepped closer, but kept a respectful distance. "Your case was flagged. High-risk emergency delivery, NICU care, potential legal involvement. They wanted confirmation that the financial side wouldn't interrupt your treatment." Lily's brow furrowed. "But I didn't apply for any program." "No," Ethan said quietly. "Your mother did, years ago." The room seemed to tilt. My mother," Lily whispered. Ethan nodded. "Grace Anderson set up a healthcare trust in your name. A substantial one." His voice softened. "She wanted to make sure you'd never be denied care, not for financial reasons, not for anyone else's control." A lump formed in Lily's throat, thick, hot, overwhelming. Her mother had woven safety nets she never knew existed. Love she didn't realize had been protecting her long after death. Ethan continued. "The hospital reached out because the trust requires periodic verification. I'm one of the trustees responsible for ensuring it's used correctly." Lily stared at him. She recognized his name. Ethan Ward. Her mother had spoken of him once, vaguely, years ago, something about a young man she had helped during a rough patch. A scholarship, a recommendation, a turning point. "You knew my mother," Lily said suddenly. He nodded once. "She changed my life." And she asked, "No, insisted that I look after yours if you ever needed it." Lily's eyes filled. "I didn't know she had done any of this." "She didn't want you to," he said gently. "She wanted you to live freely, without feeling indebted." Lily pressed a hand to her mouth as tears slipped free. Not the broken tears of grief, but something lighter. Something almost like gratitude. Ethan let her breathe before continuing. "I was also informed there may be evidence missing from the delivery room system." Lily stiffened. "Someone deleted the footage?" "Yes, and that concerns me." Her heart hammered. "Why does it concern you?" He met her gaze steadily. "Because it means someone wants your story buried, and I don't allow people I'm responsible for to be silenced." Something in his tone, quiet, unwavering, made her feel safer than she had in years. Before she could respond, Robert returned, slightly breathless, surprised to find a stranger in the room. Ethan extended a hand. "Mr. Anderson, I'm Ethan Ward. I worked with Grace years ago. I'm here to ensure Lily receives all protections available to her." Robert blinked, then glanced at Lily. "Is everything all right?" Lily nodded slowly, her grip tightening on the trust document. "Dad, Mom didn't just protect me financially. She left people behind to protect me too." Robert's eyes softened with both pain and relief. Ethan turned back to Lily. "One more thing. Given the circumstances, I strongly recommend filing for an emergency protection order. And when you're ready," he paused, "we should discuss your legal options regarding the inheritance clause." Lily inhaled deeply. The pain didn't disappear, but strength threaded through it. Mark had no idea what forces were aligning against him. And as Ethan stepped back with a gentle nod, Lily understood. For the first time in years, she wasn't standing alone. That night, long after the hallway quieted and the nurses dimmed the lights, Lily lay awake in her hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, her mind wasn't clouded by fear, it was sharpened by clarity. Pain still pulsed through her body. Grief still clawed at her chest. But beneath all of it lived a new, unfamiliar sensation. Strength. Soft, trembling, but growing. Twin B, her surviving daughter, was in the NICU, fighting the hardest battle of her tiny life. Lily knew she had to fight too. She couldn't crumble. Not now. Not when everything depended on her staying standing. Robert slept lightly in the chair beside her, head tilted, arms crossed. Even in sleep, he looked ready to defend her at the first sign of danger. She wanted to wake him and tell him she was okay, but she wasn't there yet. Instead, she watched him with deep gratitude. Her father, flawed, aging, grieving, had become her fiercest protector. She whispered, barely audible, "I'm going to make it out of this, Mom. I promise." When morning came, a nurse helped Lily into a wheelchair and brought her to the NICU. Machines hummed softly. Lights glowed warm over rows of incubators. And inside one of them, tiny, fragile, wrapped in more wires than any newborn should endure, was her daughter. Lily pressed her hand to the plastic. Tears welled, but didn't fall. "Hey baby," she whispered. "It's just us now, okay? And we're going to be fine. I won't let anyone hurt you, ever." The nurse watching them smiled gently. "She's a fighter. Just like her mama." When they brought Lily back to her room, she felt something shift inside her. A decision forming. She wasn't going to hide anymore. She wasn't going to bend under Mark's weight. She wasn't going to apologize for surviving. She was going to fight back strategically, quietly, the way women had fought for their lives for generations. And that meant she needed to start documenting everything. A young nurse stepped into the room with a tablet. Lily recognized her, the same one who had stood guard outside her door the day before. "Miss Anderson," the nurse said softly, "I made a copy of the logs from the delivery wing." She handed the tablet to Lily. "You didn't get it from me, but you'll want it." Lily blinked. "Why are you helping me?" The nurse hesitated, then said quietly, "Because I've seen too many women come through here who don't get help in time. You still can." Lily swallowed hard. "Thank you." After the nurse left, Robert returned with breakfast, though Lily barely touched it. She was staring at the tablet when he spoke. "What's that?" "Proof," Lily said. "Maybe not everything yet, but enough to start building a case." Robert sat beside her. "Whatever you decide to do, we'll do it together." Before she could answer, there was a soft knock. Ethan stepped in. Not intimidating, not forceful, just steady, as if he was bringing calm into the room with him. "I spoke with the hospital board," he said, pulling up a chair. "They're launching an internal investigation. And," he hesitated, "there's something else you should know." Lily tensed. "What is it?" "Your husband tried to access the NICU this morning." Robert shot to his feet. "What?" Ethan raised a hand. Security stopped him, but he claimed he had the right to see the baby. "He doesn't," Lily whispered, trembling. "Not after what he's done." Ethan nodded. "I agree, which is why I brought this." He placed a folder on the bed. "This is a fast-track petition for a temporary emergency restraining order. If you sign it, we can file it within the hour." Lily reached for the pen. Her hand shook, but it didn't stop. She signed her name with a slow, deliberate stroke. Ethan looked at her with something like quiet admiration. "This is the first step." Lily met his gaze. For the first time, she felt not like a victim, but like a woman learning to stand again. "No," she whispered, "this is the beginning." And somewhere down the hall, unaware of the war now gathering against him, Mark Sullivan felt the first real tremor of losing control. By the next morning, Lily's restraining order had been filed. Ethan delivered the confirmation himself, placing the stamped document gently into her hands. For a brief, fragile moment, she felt safe, protected. But with men like Mark, safety was never permanent. It was only an intermission between battles. And the next battle arrived faster than anyone expected. It began with whispers. Two nurses in the hallway murmuring as Lily was wheeled toward the NICU, a tech who glanced at her, then quickly looked away. The shift in energy was subtle but unmistakable, like a cold draft slipping under a closed door. When Lily returned to her room, her father was staring at his phone, his face turning progressively red. "Dad?" she asked. "What is it?" He hesitated. Not because he wanted to hide it, but because he didn't know how to soften the blow. "Sweetheart," Someone posted about you. Her pulse spiked. Posted what? Robert handed her the phone. On the screen was a social media post, public, shared hundreds of times already. A photo of Lily in the hospital bed, eyes swollen from crying, hair matted with sweat, oxygen tube still attached. She didn't even know the photo existed. She looked broken, vulnerable, like prey. Caption: Pray for Lily Sullivan. She had a psychological episode during labor and became violent, endangering her babies. Husband is devastated. Mental health matters. Lily's stomach dropped. Who would? But she already knew. Brianna. Of course it was Brianna. She scrolled. Comments blurred together. She looks unstable. Poor husband. Imagine going through that. She needs help, not custody. Where were the doctors? Oh wow, is this the woman who attacked staff during labor? Lily's throat tightened until she couldn't breathe. It's a lie, Robert said fiercely. Every word of it is a lie. But people believe it, Lily whispered. They believe I hurt my babies. Hey. Robert cupped her cheek. Truth wins in the end. But they both knew truth didn't always win, not when lies spread faster, louder, and prettier. A knock sounded at the door. Ethan entered, holding a folder, but the moment he saw Lily's face, he paused. What happened? Robert handed him the phone. Ethan's expression hardened. It wasn't anger, it was something colder, more controlled. A businessman assessing a hostile takeover. This wasn't some random post, he said quietly. This was coordinated. Lily swallowed. Coordinated? Yes. The account that posted it has less than 50 followers, but the story was picked up instantly by dozens of larger pages. Someone paid for amplification. Mark, or Brianna, or both. Ethan set the phone aside and kneeled beside Lily's bed. Listen to me, he said gently but firmly. This is a smear campaign. They're trying to build a medical instability narrative before legal proceedings begin. They're trying to take my daughter, Lily whispered, voice cracking. Yes, Ethan said, but they're not going to succeed. He opened his folder. Inside were printed screenshots and timestamps. These are the access logs your nurse obtained. They show exactly when the footage was deleted and from what terminal. Lily scanned the page. A chill ran through her. It was done from inside the delivery ward, she murmured. And that's not the interesting part, Ethan added. Look at the second screenshot. The terminal had been accessed using a staff login, but the login belonged to someone who hadn't been on shift that day. Someone with connections in hospital IT. Someone who had visited the hospital dozens of times with Mark. Someone who had once worked in a psychiatric facility manipulating patient records. Brianna Cole. Lily's breath hitched. She helped him. She helped him hide what he did. Ethan nodded. And that makes her legally culpable. Robert clenched his fists. What do we do now? You do nothing, Ethan said, rising. I'm sending these logs to a legal team I trust, not the kind Mark can manipulate. He paused. And Lily, do not let that post define you. When we're done, their lies will expose them, not you. For the first time since the delivery room, Lily felt a spark not just of strength, but of power. They wanted to destroy her reputation. Instead, they had given her evidence. And as she exhaled slowly, eyes fierce despite the tears, she whispered, Then let the truth burn them. Because now the whole world would soon learn. The woman they tried to silence was done being quiet. The next morning, the hospital felt different, not calmer, not safer, but charged. Like the air before a storm, nurses moved in clusters. Security lingered longer near the maternity wing. Even doctors avoided eye contact with the tall man in a crisp suit pacing near the elevators. Mark Sullivan. He wasn't yelling. Not yet, but he was simmering, and the building felt it. Inside Lily's room, however, the atmosphere shifted towards something else entirely. Strategy. Ethan arrived carrying a slim black folder and the kind of composed determination that only came from a man used to cleaning up disasters, financial, corporate, or human. Robert sat in the corner, fingers tapping anxiously against the arm of his chair. Lily sat propped against her pillows, exhaustion still etched into her face, but her eyes, red, swollen, fierce, held a new sharpness. She wasn't just surviving now. She was preparing. Ethan placed the folder on the bed and opened it. This is the beginning, he said, not the end, and today we take our first real swing. Lily inhaled slowly. What did you find? Ethan slid a small device across the blanket. A voice recorder. Lily blinked. What's this? It belongs to a nurse, Ethan explained. She didn't want to come forward directly, but she gave us this. He pressed play. The recording crackled for a second. Then, Mark's voice filled the room. She exaggerates everything. If she loses it again, the doctors will see it's just her mental state. As long as they believe she's unstable, I can secure full custody. Lily's blood ran cold. He continued, once I have custody, we'll move. She won't follow. She's too weak. And if she tries, I'll show them the footage. They'll lock her up before she ever gets near the kids. Robert surged to his feet. Footage? What footage? Ethan held up a hand. He means the footage he thinks supports his story, the one he deleted everything around. He pressed play again. Now Brianna's voice entered the recording, slightly distorted but unmistakable. You need to stop panicking. I told you. I got rid of the bad part. Everything else makes her look hysterical. She'll never prove you touched her. Lily's throat tightened. The room spun. Mark's chuckle followed. Cold, confident, sociopathic. She always breaks eventually. She'll fall apart in court, and when she does, I'll win everything. The recording clicked off. The silence afterward was heavy enough to suffocate. Lily whispered, he was planning to take my daughter. To take both of them, even before I gave birth. Ethan nodded. This audio changes everything. It establishes intent, manipulation, and conspiracy. And combined with the access logs from the hospital system, he tapped the folder. It's a blueprint of criminal behavior. Robert's voice trembled with restrained rage. We're taking this to the police today. Right now. Not yet, Ethan said gently. Not yet? Robert exploded. He tried to kill my daughter. He killed one of my granddaughters. I know, Ethan replied calmly. Which is why we need the right timing. If we act too early, they'll have time to destroy more evidence. We need the full case audio, hospital logs, eyewitness accounts, and a statement from Lily once she's physically stable. Lily gripped the blanket. And then what? Then, Ethan said, we bring everything to a lawyer who specializes in domestic violence and criminal obstruction. Someone Mark's money and charm can't manipulate. Her pulse steadied. For the first time since the delivery room, she felt something warming her chest. Not fear. Not grief. Fire. Robert sank back into his chair, rubbing his temples. We'll get him, sweetheart. I promise you. Ethan leaned closer. There's more. Lily tensed. More? Ethan handed her a printed spreadsheet hospital access logs. Look at the timestamp from the deletion, he said. She scanned the rows. And there it was. A login from Brianna's old job, a private psychiatric facility. How is that possible? Lily whispered. She still had her credentials, Ethan said. She used them to mask the deletion. This isn't just tampering, it's medical fraud. And when this comes to light, she'll face charges too. Lily exhaled shakily. They did all of this. Together. Yes, Ethan said softly. But now we can prove it. Suddenly, footsteps thundered down the hallway. Angry. Fast. Mark. His voice boomed from outside. I want to see my wife right now. Security intervened, voices rising. A commotion built. Ethan moved toward the door, positioning himself like a barrier. Lily's heart pounded. Robert clenched his fists. And Ethan whispered without turning back. Let him scream. He has no idea his entire world is burning. Because after today, Mark Sullivan would never again control the narrative or Lily. Mark's shouting shook the maternity wing like a physical force. Nurses peeked from behind curtains. A doctor paused mid-chart, eyes narrowing. Even the security guards, 2 of them now shifted their stance, ready for escalation. Inside Lily's room, Ethan stood at the door, one hand on the handle, body angled like a shield. Robert hovered near the foot of Lily's bed, jaw tight, shoulders coiled with protective rage. Lily felt her pulse racing, but she stayed upright. She wouldn't collapse, not this time. Not for him. Through the door, Mark barked again. I have a right to see my wife. A guard responded sharply. Sir, you've been legally restricted. Step back. Restricted? Mark scoffed. Over what, her delusions? She's unstable. She's grieving. She doesn't know what she's saying. Lily flinched. Same lines he'd used for years. Same script. Same gaslighting. But this time, the world wasn't buying it. Suddenly, footsteps approached, confident, purposeful. A firm knock followed. Ethan cracked the door open an inch. A woman's voice came through first. Smooth, professional, controlled. Mr. Ward? I'm attorney Valerie Hayes. You requested immediate counsel. Ethan exhaled, relieved. Perfect timing. He opened the door wider, blocking Mark's sightline into the room. Valerie Hayes stepped in late 40s, impeccably dressed, carrying a leather portfolio and the kind of aura that made grown men rethink their choices. She didn't look at Mark, didn't acknowledge his existence. She simply entered the room like she already owned the outcome. Miss Anderson, she said warmly, I'm here to represent you. Lily blinked in confusion. But, I never. Ethan spoke softly. I called her. She specializes in complex domestic violence and medical tampering cases. Valerie nodded. And your case, Lily, is one of the most severe I've seen in years. Outside the door, Mark was still shouting, but his voice cracked now, not with fury, but with the first signs of panic. Valerie set her portfolio on the bed tray, flipping it open with crisp precision. I've reviewed the access logs, the audio recording, and the administrator's report, she said. We're filing 3 separate actions. One for attempted homicide, one for the death of Twin A, and one for data obstruction. And Brianna Cole will face charges as a co-conspirator. Lily's breath caught. It's really enough? More than enough, Valerie replied. And with the restraining order in place, we have leverage. But there's something you need to do next. Lily's hands tightened around the blanket. What is it? Valerie handed her a form. You need to formally revoke Mark's access to the baby in the NICU. Robert's head snapped up. He tried to get near her this morning. Valerie's jaw hardened. Then this is urgent. Lily stared at the form. Her daughter, tiny, fragile, fighting, needed protection more than anyone. Her pen barely shook as she signed. Ethan watched her with a quiet pride, though he kept his expression neutral. Valerie slipped the form back into her portfolio. Good, now let me handle the rest. Outside, Mark tried again. You can't shut me out. I'm her husband. Valerie stepped into the doorway, her presence slicing through the tension like a blade. Mr. Sullivan, she said calmly, I am Lily Anderson's attorney. Your access to this floor is suspended due to an active emergency protection order. Mark's face blanched. Her attorney? Yes, Valerie replied. And effective immediately, you are barred from contacting her, approaching her, or approaching the child. She's my kid. Not anymore, Valerie cut sharply. Not after what you did. Mark lunged forward, but security gripped his arms before he took 2 steps. You're making a mistake, he shouted. All of you, this is her doing. She's unstable, he pointed at the room frantically. You'll see, she'll fall apart. She always falls apart. Valerie's voice turned icy. Not this time. Security dragged him away, his shouts echoing down the corridor until they faded into distant, frustrated howls. When the hallway finally went quiet, Ethan closed the door gently. Lily exhaled shakily. Valerie turned back to her. You just won your first battle. Lily wiped a tear from her cheek, not from fear, but from something new. Strength. And as Valerie gathered her documents, she added, Get ready, Lily, because next, we make sure he never hurts you again. The storm around Lily was growing, but inside her room, a quieter transformation was taking place. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar taking root agency. Her voice was no longer an echo, her choices no longer dictated by fear. And that terrified Mark more than anything. After security removed him from the floor, the maternity wing slowly regained a fragile calm. Nurses resumed their rounds. The soft beeping of monitors filled the background. Yet beneath the routine hum, everyone sensed the tension, like a current running under polished tile. Lily was reviewing the restraining order paperwork with Valerie when a timid knock came at the door. A young nurse stepped in, eyes darting nervously toward the hallway. The moment she saw Valerie and Ethan, she exhaled shakily as if reassured they were there. Miss Anderson, she whispered. I think I have something you need to hear. Lily frowned. What is it? The nurse closed the door, clutching something in her hand. A small USB flash drive. Her fingers trembled as she held it out. This is a copy of an internal audio file I wasn't supposed to keep, she said, but I saved it anyway. I couldn't pretend I didn't know. Valerie stood instantly alert. What audio file? The nurse swallowed. From the delivery room hallway microphones. They don't pick up everything, but they caught a conversation minutes before the footage deletion. Lily's pulse quickened. Whose voices? The nurse hesitated and then said the names Lily already knew. Mark and Brianna. Robert's hands curled into fists. Ethan's jaw tightened. Valerie nodded slowly. Let's play it. The nurse inserted the USB into the hospital laptop. A file popped up. DRHALLWAY14BAUDIO. Valerie clicked play. The recording was grainy, but clear enough. Mark. Delete the entire block. All 10 minutes. Brianna. If they catch me. Mark. They won't. Just use your old credentials. No one will question it. Brianna. She's bleeding, Mark. This is going too far. Mark. She'll survive. She always does. Just do it. Brianna. And the twins? Mark. If one doesn't make it, that gives us leverage. They'll blame her instability. Lily gasped. The room fell silent, frozen, horrified. In the recording, Brianna whispered, Mark, this is criminal. Mark responded coldly. So is losing custody. So is losing control. Then footsteps. A click. Silence. Valerie stopped the audio and leaned back slowly, absorbing the enormity of what they had just heard. This, she said, her voice steady but trembling with controlled outrage, is the missing piece. Intent, collusion, motive. Direct acknowledgement of harm to both the mother and the twins. Robert wiped tears from his eyes, anger, grief, vindication, mixing into a tremor he didn't try to hide. He used my daughter's life, Robert whispered hoarsely. He used my grandchild's life as bargaining chips. Ethan closed the laptop gently. This isn't just evidence. It's a confession. The nurse wrung her hands. I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner, but he scares me. He scares a lot of us. Lily reached out, touching the nurse's hand lightly. Thank you. You did the bravest thing imaginable. Valerie slipped the USB into an evidence bag. This alone is enough to file felony charges, and when combined with the deleted footage logs and the first audio recording, she inhaled deeply. Mark Sullivan is going to prison. The nurse nodded quickly. There's something else. Someone else wants to talk to you. Her voice softened. She's been too afraid. Until now. Before Lily could ask who, another figure appeared behind the nurse, older, anxious, wringing her hands in her scrubs. A different nurse. The nurse who had been in the delivery room. Her eyes overflowed with guilt the moment she saw Lily. I should have spoken earlier, the nurse whispered. I saw everything. I saw him push the pillow. I saw your face turn blue. I froze. I'm so sorry. Lily's breath caught. The nurse's voice cracked. But I recorded something too. I had my phone in my pocket. I didn't mean to. I hit the button by accident, but it recorded the sound of you choking, and him telling you to stop making a scene. Robert inhaled sharply. Ethan's expression darkened. Valerie closed her eyes slowly, relief washing through her. Lily felt tears rise, but not from sorrow. From justice beginning to take shape. For years, her truth had lived inside her alone. Now it was multiplying, growing, speaking back. We're going to bring him down, Valerie said, voice firm. Lily nodded, strength flooding her veins like fire. Because now she finally had what Mark feared most. Her voice, amplified by the voices of others. Mark Sullivan had always believed he was untouchable. He thought charm and money could smooth over every crack, every lie, every wound he inflicted. But that morning, while Lily gathered witnesses and evidence, Mark felt something he had never truly experienced. Losing control. He stormed into his downtown office, slamming doors, barking orders, sending interns scrambling like frightened birds. His assistant looked at him from behind her MacBook, as if he were a stranger. Rumors had spread. Something about the hospital, something about police interest, something about him. And the whispers weren't flattering. Mark's phone buzzed relentlessly. 3 missed calls from his lawyer, 5 messages from Brianna. He ignored none of them. He couldn't afford to. He stabbed the screen and answered, "What?" Brianna's voice was frantic. "Why am I hearing that the hospital board is looking into IT breaches? Why are people calling me? What did you do, Mark?" He grit his teeth. "Nothing they can prove." "That's not reassuring," she snapped. "We should have destroyed everything." "We?" he barked. "Don't drag me into your panic." But Brianna wasn't panicking, she was unraveling. "I'm not going to prison for you. If they question me, I'll tell them everything." Mark froze, his blood iced over. "You wouldn't. You think I won't protect myself?" she hissed. "You're delusional." He ended the call abruptly. Brianna was no longer an asset. She was a liability, one who knew too much and feared too little. He paced his office, mind racing. He needed leverage, evidence, something to turn the narrative back onto Lily, paint her as mentally unstable, unfit, dangerous. She was emotional. She had cried easily. She had struggled after her mother died. He could twist that. He could twist anything. He always had before. He reached for the drawer where he kept a thick file notes from Lily's past therapy sessions he had manipulated her into giving him. But when he yanked open the drawer, empty. Every file, every paper, gone. "What?" he whispered. He tore through the desk, panic rising until it felt like a vice crushing his ribs. He slammed drawers, scattered documents, knocked over a $200 glass pen holder. Then he saw it. A small folded note lying in the center of his desk. He recognized the handwriting immediately. Lily's. His breath hitched as he opened it. "You don't own me anymore." Small, simple, quiet. But for Mark Sullivan, it was the equivalent of a bomb detonating. He crumpled the note in his fist, trembling with fury. How? How had she gotten the files? She could barely walk 2 days ago. How had she outmaneuvered him? A knock hit his office door. Ard. Mark straightened, forcing confidence back into his posture. "Come in." 2 men stepped inside stern, dressed in tailored suits, badges clipped to their belts. "Mark Sullivan?" one asked. "Yes," he said slowly. "We're investigators with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. We received multiple reports regarding medical tampering, evidence destruction, and potential domestic violence." Mark laughed too loudly. "This is insane. My wife is unstable. She's been manipulated. We'd like you to come with us to answer a few questions." "I don't have to go anywhere," Mark snapped. "You have nothing on me." The second investigator lifted a clear evidence bag. Inside it, a USB drive. Mark felt the blood drain from his face. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. The investigator's voice dropped, almost pitying. "From a witness who says she overheard you discussing deleting hospital footage?" His throat closed. The room swayed. Then the investigator added, "And that's not all." A nurse came forward with an audio recording from the delivery room. For the first time, Mark stumbled backward, hitting the edge of his desk. "Please step out of the office, Mr. Sullivan." Mark's mask cracked. Everything he built, every lie he crafted, was collapsing around him. And worse, Lily had beaten him to the first move. He inhaled sharply, chest tight, vision blurring not from emotion, but from the realization of what was unfolding. His wife, the woman he tried to break, the woman he tried to silence, she had turned the world against him. As the investigators guided him out past the glass office walls, staff stared, whispering. He heard snippets. "That's the guy from the hospital. He hurt his wife? I never liked him. Good. He deserves it." Mark's face flushed with humiliation. For the first time in his life, people weren't believing him. They weren't siding with him. They were watching him fall. And somewhere across the city, holding her newborn daughter, Lily felt the shift the moment the monster began to crumble. The day after Mark was escorted out of his office by investigators, the hospital felt different. Not haunted anymore, but quietly rearranging itself around Lily, like a world finally remembering who it should have protected all along. Nurses smiled at her when they passed. Doctors asked permission before touching her chart. Security nodded respectfully outside her door. For years, Lily had been shrinking, folding herself smaller to survive. Now the world around her seemed to widen, making room for her to grow. She needed that strength when she returned to the NICU that morning. Twin B, her surviving daughter, lay nestled in the incubator, tiny chest rising and falling under the warm lights. A tube ran beneath her nose, sensors wrapped around her feet, but she was fighting. Lily pressed her palm to the glass. "Hi, sweetheart," she whispered. "Your mama's here." The baby's feet kicked slightly. That tiny movement cracked Lily open. Tears fell quiet, steady, not of despair anymore, but of awe, of love, of the fierce, primal certainty that she would do anything to protect this child. "Your sister is watching over you," Lily whispered, "and I will never let what happened touch you. I swear it." A nurse approached, smiling softly. "She's responding well today. Her levels are improving." Lily wiped her tears. "She's strong. She gets it from you," the nurse said. For the first time in months, years, Lily didn't reject the compliment. She let it settle in her chest. Strength wasn't something she ever saw in herself. But now, seeing her daughter growing despite every obstacle, she began to believe she might possess it too. When she returned to her room, Valerie was waiting with a stack of papers. "Good timing," Valerie said. "We have an update." Robert stood from his chair immediately. "Did they question him?" "Not just question him," Valerie replied. "They're preparing charges. Multiple charges." Lily's breath shuddered. "How long until?" "They're building it methodically." Valerie sat on the edge of the bed. "We want every door locked before he realizes how few exits he has left." Ethan stepped inside next, carrying a laptop. "And while the criminal side moves forward, we handle the civil side." Lily tensed. "Civil?" "Yes," Ethan said gently. "Wrongful death for twin A, emergency custody rights, financial restitution, and access to your mother's estate." Lily's grip tightened on the blanket. "I don't care about the money. I just want him gone." "Money," Valerie said firmly, "is power, Lily. It's protection. It gives you freedom he never wanted you to have. And you deserve every dollar your mother entrusted to you." Ethan opened the laptop. A detailed spreadsheet lit the screen. "This," he explained, "is what Mark didn't want you to see. Property, investments, trusts, accrued interest, buried accounts." Her mother had crafted not just an inheritance, but an escape hatch big enough for a future Lily never dared imagine. She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Mom, how did she plan all this?" "Grace was a brilliant woman," Ethan said softly, "and she knew the world wasn't always kind to gentle hearts." Lily looked at him, really looked. Ethan wasn't just a trustee or a businessman or someone her mother had once helped. He was someone who genuinely cared whether she survived, whether she healed, whether she found her way back to herself. She whispered, "Thank you." He met her gaze and gave a quiet smile. "You don't owe me thanks. Just take the future your mother wanted for you." Before she could respond, the door burst open with joyful energy, unexpected and deeply needed. A nurse hurried in. "Lily," she opened her eyes again. "Your baby, she's responding beautifully. You should come." Lily gasped, a hand flying to her chest. "Right now?" "Yes, come." Robert helped her into the wheelchair. Lily's heart pounded not from fear this time, but from hope so bright it hurt. When she reached the incubator, her daughter blinked up at her, eyes tiny and unfocused, but open, really open. Lily leaned close, tears dripping onto her gown. "Hi, baby," she whispered, voice trembling. "Mama's here. Mama's not going anywhere." The nurse glanced at the monitor. Her oxygen levels jumped when she heard your voice. Lily broke entirely this time into something radiant. For the first moment since losing twin A, she felt her heart mend, not fully, but enough to hold hope without breaking. Behind her, Ethan stood watching quietly. Robert wiped his eyes. The nurses smiled. And Lily understood something. Her healing had begun. Her daughter had chosen to live. And now Lily would choose to rise. Stronger, louder, and more unstoppable than Mark ever imagined. 2 months later, the Manhattan courthouse buzzed with restless energy. Reporters gathered on the front steps, microphones raised, cameras flashing. The story had spread: hospital tampering, attempted homicide, a newborn fighting for life. The public wanted answers. They wanted justice. And today, they were finally going to get it. Inside, Lily sat in the front row of the courtroom beside her father and Ethan. Her daughter, now stronger, breathing without assistance, was with a NICU volunteer in a quiet room nearby. Lily touched the tiny silver bracelet around her wrist, engraved with her daughter's name, a gift Ethan had arranged. She wore it like armor. Valerie stood at the table, calm, composed, unstoppable. Mark entered, escorted by 2 officers. His suit was wrinkled, his face pale. His confidence, the weapon he used for years, had abandoned him. The gallery murmured when they saw him. He flinched. For the first time in his life, people weren't admiring him. They were watching a man about to lose everything. Brianna entered next, in handcuffs, tears streaking down her face. She avoided Mark's eyes. He glared at her anyway. 2 traitors tied together by greed and fear. The judge took her seat. The courtroom fell silent. Calling the case of Mark Sullivan, the clerk announced, charged with attempted homicide, negligent homicide of a minor, evidence tampering, and conspiracy to obstruct medical investigation. Lily's breath trembled. Robert placed a steady hand on her shoulder. The prosecutor approached the bench. "Your Honor, we present the compiled evidence." One by one, it was displayed. The audio recordings from the delivery room hallway. The nurse's accidental recording of Lily choking. The deleted footage logs showing Brianna's unauthorized access. Witness testimonies from nurses who saw the panic, the bruising, the fear in Lily's eyes. Medical reports confirming deliberate pressure against Lily's airway. Mark watched it unravel with growing horror, shaking his head as if disbelief could rewrite reality. "This is a setup," he suddenly shouted, rising from his seat. "She's crazy. She's been crazy for years." The judge slammed her gavel. "Sit down." Valerie stepped forward. "Your Honor, may we present one final exhibit?" The judge nodded. Valerie turned toward Lily. "Miss Anderson, would you please take the stand?" Lily froze. Ethan gently squeezed her hand. "You can do this." Robert whispered, "We're right here." She stood. Her legs trembled at first, but with every step she grew steadier until she reached the witness stand and faced the courtroom, faced the man who tried to erase her. Valerie approached her. "Lily, did your husband attempt to harm you during labor?" Lily inhaled slowly. "Yes." "Can you describe what you experienced?" Her eyes flicked to Mark, but she didn't shrink. "He held a pillow over my face," she said clearly. "I couldn't breathe. I thought I was dying. And he knew I was pregnant. He knew the twins needed oxygen. He didn't care." A ripple of shock ran through the gallery. Valerie nodded gently. "Did you fear for your life?" "Yes." "And did you fear for your children's lives?" Lily's voice broke. "One of them didn't survive." Mark lowered his head. Not in shame defeat. When Lily stepped down, the room held its breath. The judge reviewed the evidence for a long, heavy moment. Then she looked up. "Mark Sullivan," she said, "the court finds you guilty on all counts." Gasps. Reporters scribbled frantically. Brianna sobbed into her cuffs. Mark shook violently, yelling as officers grabbed him. "Lily, you can't do this. You need me. I made you." Lily stood, spine straight, voice steady. "You never made me," she said. "You almost destroyed me, but you didn't." The officers pulled him away. His shouting faded into the hallway. And just like that, he was gone. Valerie exhaled. Ethan smiled softly. Robert cried openly, unashamed. Lily stepped out of the courthouse into warm sunlight. Reporters called her name, but she didn't stop. She looked up at the sky, inhaled deeply, and felt the weight of years lift from her chest. Her daughter waited for her at home. Her mother's legacy protected her future. Her nightmare had ended. Ethan walked to her side. "You did it." "No," Lily whispered, watching the city glitter like a promise. "I survived it. Now I get to live." And for the first time in a very long time, Lily stepped forward into a life that was fully, finally, hers. So, that's it, my wonderful friends. Our story has come to a close. And if you're still here right now, listening to these last words, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a way that can't be ignored. Maybe it was Lily's strength. Maybe it was her daughter's fight. Maybe it was the reminder that even in the darkest rooms, light can still find a way in. What Lily's story teaches us is something the Stoics understood deeply. You may not control all events, but you can control how you rise after them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes stronger when it chooses courage over fear, and Lily did exactly that. She showed us that healing is not instant, but it is possible. And it begins the moment you say, "This ends with me." If this story resonated with you, if it stirred something inside you, then don't keep that feeling to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs strength today. Subscribe to our channel so we can keep walking through these emotional journeys together. Remember, you deserve safety, love, and a life that is fully yours, and we'll be right here telling stories that remind you of that truth again and again.